What's going on, everyone? This is Austin with Captured Metal, and today I want to give you my 10 best tips for editing photos in Lightroom, and maybe some of these can transfer onto Photoshop as well. So without further ado, let's get straight to the video. Now, I do have my list on my phone, so I'm going to actually pull up my phone, and we're going to go by the list one by one, just because I want to kind of stay in order, right? So first things first, you want to make sure you're importing a raw photo. So every time that I shoot, mind you, I'm shooting on a Sony A7 III, A7 IV actually, yeah, A7 IV. I only shoot in RAW, so that way I get the best quality image, best dynamic range, etc., or at least in my experience. So make sure you're importing photos from RAW format. That way when you're editing, you have the strongest editing power possible. That way you get the best quality, the best colors, everything. Okay, so that's tip number one. Tip number two, and let this be known, these tips are also kind of in order of how I usually will edit my photos, so just keep that in mind. So the second tip is going to be remove unwanted objects, okay? For a lot of you guys that are up and coming in photography, specifically automotive photography, you want to make sure that the car is the focal point of the picture. That is what the whole image is about. So you want to make sure that people don't get distracted by a light pole here or a trash can over here or anything like that. You want to make sure the car is the masterpiece of the photo. Get creative with Lightroom, because Lightroom does have AI integration with the removal tool now. It can detect objects, it can do some crazy things, and it's actually really good. So I've used it countless number of times, and it's been an excellent tool for me. And even people that I've done photo shoots for, they would have never guessed that it's possible. So they make it easier now than ever to actually take things out of an image. So make sure you're taking unwanted objects out of your image. Now, it goes without saying, there's a common issue in Lightroom that, say if you've masked, the sky, trees, everything, and then you try to remove an object, say like a pole, and then you'll see like a faded outline of the pole and you can't get rid of it. That's a common issue with Lightroom. The workaround to that is make sure you don't edit the photo at all yet, right? Hence why I have this, pretty much as the number two step, but you want to make sure that you remove all the objects before you start editing the photo. So if that makes any sense. So that was number two. Now number three, adjust your exposure first. So I like to adjust the exposure to make sure that the brightness of the overall photo is kind of where I want it, or at least a really good, earshot of it. But it's also to make sure that your shadows can appear a little bit more, so you can get a better sense of how you're going to further edit said shadows. Okay, so I always like to expose or adjust the exposure first, right? I don't want to say first, that's number three, but that's what I want to do. Next, I adjust the temperature of the actual image itself, because for me, I gravitate towards warmer photos. That's just something I love. I think it brings a lot of drama, dreamscape out of a lot of my images. Even for bring a trailer pictures and cars and bids, shoots that I'm doing, I'll give a little bit of warmth to a photo, but still make it look natural. So it's still possible. But I always adjust the temperature. Naturally, if you want something more cooler and, a little bit more subdued and such, you can absolutely do that. Now it's September, we're getting into the colder season here in North America. So naturally, a lot of the photos and stuff like that might have a cooler temp to it in the following months. So that's my number four tip. Number five, mask the car and mask the sky separately if possible. Okay, I know this is kind of a given, but some people will forget to mask the sky, and then next thing you know, you're editing all these different colors and you're color grading, and something just ends up looking wonky. Okay, make sure you mask the car, because the following the following tips that I'm going to say are going to bounce off of that. But make sure you mask the car and the sky separately. Number 6, when you mask the car. Okay, this is something that I've recently, in my opinion, I'd like to say almost perfected. I think one of the best things that can be done in a photo is bringing out details in darker areas of the car, right? And of course, it'll all depend on what kind of shoot you want. Obviously, if you're going for a really dark, uh, I don't even melancholy photo, dark might be good. But for me, I'm usually in brighter areas. I don't do as many night shoots or dark shoots. So for me, I like to bring up the shadows of the car itself. That's going to bring more detail out of the wheels, tires, maybe diffusers, side skirts, or even just around the car in general, right? But you're going to notice when you bring up the shadows of the car as a whole, the entire car is going to start looking a little faded and fuzzy. So when you do that, that brings me to my number 7 tip, and that is you want to dehaze the car after you do that, okay? When you dehaze the car after doing so, it's going to bring back the original finish to the car as it was imported, and you might even be able to dehaze it further to really bring out the true tone of the car itself. For example, I'm going to show on screen this Audi R8 I did. And if I bring up the shadows, you're going to see the car gets really foggy-ish, but then I reduce or I dehaze the car more, and it brings out a lot of color, a lot of definition into the car, smooths out the paint. It just looks fantastic. So those two are very intertwined, but that's my 7, or that's my 6 and 7. Oh man, can I count right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Holy cow, I can't count. That's number 6 and 7. Number 8. I always want to smooth out the image with noise reduction. Uh, you shouldn't necessarily have to use this all the time if you have your camera settings right. So for me, I'm usually shooting at a very low ISO if I can. If I'm doing a night shoot or something like that, that might take multiple exposures, then I'll still keep it at a low ISO, but I might, you know, uh, change my shutter speed and things like that to compensate for the light and just do, a few bracketed photos. But always you want to reduce as much noise as possible, just, to make the image look cleaner. And then you want to follow up by sharpening the image to get cleaner lines, right? Now, if you're wanting a more, I guess, vintagey kind of look, then grain can actually look really good in the photos, and you can add grain into the photo, after the fact, or you can just shoot at a higher ISO and introduce grain into the photo. Your choice. Number 9, my ninth tip is you might have to adjust the crop of the photo accordingly, right? There's plenty of times when I'll shoot in 16:9 ratio, even though the camera will shoot in a 3:2 as a whole, right? But it gives you a little bit of flexibility to crop however you need to, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure a lot of the times that the subject is focused or centered in a, you know, uh, more attractive way. You want to make sure it just comes out looking good and clean, right? For me, I always eyeball it, but again, when you adjust the crop, it'll have the 3:3:3, the 9 grid, where you can adjust and you can see where the actual subject's going to line up in the entirety of the photo. So just keep that in mind, that you need to adjust the crop sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. And finally, number 10. This is one that I don't know why this has to be changed, but it does. If you're ever going to export from Lightroom, whether it's on a phone or a computer, make sure you're exporting in 100% quality. It's weird to say that, but it defaults when you open the app, its default setting is 90% image quality. Don't do that. JPEG is fine, but do 100% quality so that way you're getting the Mac Daddy production quality that you work so hard to edit for. So that, always do that. Okay, that is one of my biggest things. If you take anything away, make sure you're exporting in 100% quality. Okay, every single time. So that is my top 10 list of current tips for Lightroom. I will break down a lot of those other tips into videos themselves. So if you want me to go into more detail about any of these things, leave a comment down below so that way I can, create more content regarding those specific editing details of the photo. So I'd love to help out and I'd love to interact with the community here. So definitely leave a comment down below. And if you like the content, definitely like and subscribe, because there's going to be more photography how-tos and just general info regarding photography. And again, I specialize mostly in automotive photography, but I'm sure a lot of these tips and tricks will carry over into other industries as well. So without further ado, my name's Austin with Captured Metal, and I'll see you on the next video.